Today we are going to do a simple standing stone, and for that I am going to yet again use a poker chip base because they're nice, they're round, they're handy, they're cheap, and they are weighted. So roughed it up just to get a surface that paint can adhere to, and then I'm going to pop a little hole in the middle just like this, and then use either a file or a Dremel sanding tool just to take those edges down so that it's got a little bit less of a really upright lip on it. And then just get rid of that burring and neaten it off again with the sandpaper. A little bit of sellotape over the back hole. I've got a toothpick here and we're going to pop it into that hole just to give the stone some stability while it's on the base and help it stick better. And then a dab of super glue. Pop that in place. Alright, and we shall come back to that and we'll get on with the actual stone itself. So on with the standing stone, and I've got some squeegee rubber here. It's the kind of packing material that you normally get around sort of the edges of electronic equipment nowadays, and the good thing about it over polystyrene is the fact that it cuts really nicely without the use of a hot wire cutter, and you don't get bobbles all over the place. So let's have a nice imposing piece like so. Right, that'll stand up nicely, and then I'm just going to carve it down into sort of the classic Asterix the Gaul type teardrop standing stone. And the good thing with this stuff is you can also use just straight scissors to trim it down. In fact, that's a bit better. I'm happy with the shape of that. So we'll just get some neat PVA glue, decent bit round the base there, all the way up the stem, and pop that straight on in place, and we'll leave that to dry for a little while. So now that is dried and in place, we are going to give it a covering to cover over this sort of rough, horrible foamy stuff. And for that it is our standard mix of PVA and water with a bit of detergent. Big brush to mix it all up, and you have seen me do this before on covering foam up, but it has been a while, so we just take that and we liberally brush that mix on there. You can do it in sections, but this, it being such a small model, I'm just going to do it in a wanna. And you do want it nice and runny because it has to soak into another material, which is tissue paper, and I will grab that in just a second. Right, that is a good wet covering, and these are just clean standard household tissues, and we tear some strips off and we are laying it on there as if it were, well, basically making paper mache, and use a wee bit more of the water PVA just to smooth it down into place like so. And it's perfectly fine if it goes down onto the base, and it also doesn't matter too much if it folds up, because tissue paper being so thin, it will smooth those wrinkles out, and it just makes it look a little bit like imperfections in the rock, which is all the better because this is exactly what we want in a texture coat. Make sure all those edges are down, top is covered. Quick check all the way around, make sure we haven't missed any bits. Oh, there's a missing bit there. Right, I am happy that that is all covered, and that now goes for an overnight dry, and we'll finish it off tomorrow. That tissue paper has dried nicely overnight, so let's start prettying up the base. And we've got a bit of watered down PVA here, and I'm not going to go all the way to the edges, but I am going to make sure that I get around the base of the stone just to give it a bit of sort of bare dirt around there. And this is just builder's sand, and we'll get a covering of there, and that can dry for a little while, and we'll do a paint job. That basing sand's had a good chance to dry, so let's get on with some painting. And I'm swapping to a big brush, and I'm just going to water down some grey household paint. Now, because all of the material I've used doesn't react with spray paint like normal polystyrene does, I could have got away with spraying this, but because it's such a small piece, I thought that I would just do it by hand for quickness. Plus, at the base, I actually want to blend the paint a little bit, which you can't necessarily do with a spray, otherwise it starts getting real messy real quick. I want it nicely watered down for when I go down onto that sand. And then swap, and when it's ground I always do a brown and get that around there, and I'm doing the whole base like that. And the reason why I wanted the grey nice and runny is because that will automatically desaturate the colours, make it less vibrant and more sort of earth tone. Now that can dry off. Dry brushing now to pick out the texture in that rock, and this is just a lighter colour of household paint. And then just give it a dry brush all over using a nice big brush. And I'm also going to just do a flick around on the texture at the bottom as well, just to get that to stand out a wee bit better. And while I've got that grey out, let's get a bit of that in there. And some of this is all GW Goblin Green. Get a splodge of that, and we'll mix that in together. So the grey has desaturated the colour on that, and it has turned it down into a nice sort of lichen colour. I'll grab a sponge, get some of that on, make sure it's not too much, and we'll just weather it a little bit with some lichen pattern on there like that. And it doesn't matter if it hasn't completely mixed through. And this is some bone white. And I'll get a fresh area of sponge and just add a wee bit more on there like that, just to offset that green. And I'm using a sponge because we don't want sort of like brush marks or anything like that. I guess you could stipple it if you really wanted to, but that is not looking too bad. Right, clear the paint away. And I've got some watered down PVA here just to get a wee bit of grass around those bottom edges. Get a patch on there. And of course, if you've missed any areas with the stone cover, this is your opportunity to catch up on them with the ground cover. And normal grass flocking all around. And that can dry for a little while, and we'll just add one more finishing touch. Final bit of decoration, we're going to put some mystical looking bushes around the base of our mystical stone. I got these from Temu and I've been wondering what to do with the purple, so why not? Let's have a wee spot of super glue just in there, get them in place. Tamp it down, another bit around the other side like so. There we go, just to give it a wee bit of an accent. And that is that one done. And of course, remember, if you want to keep yourself off the naughty list, you should subscribe, because there is still loads more in December to be crafting with, and I will see you tomorrow.